So I want to welcome you. And first of all, I want to say my name. My name is Daniel Greenberg, and I am a fairly new co-director of the Foundation for Intentional Community. Been here in the FIC for just a few months, but I've been in the communities world, mostly with eco-villages, for well over 30 years. It's been a large part of my life. And I'm so happy to be here with you all and to have Celastrina with us for this webinar on creating community in the modern world. Yeah, well, actually, I do want to share this screen again. And what I'd like to do is do a quick overview of the Foundation for Intentional Community. I imagine most of you are familiar with us, but I also imagine a number of you have come from the outside. And of course, it's always great just to hear a little update. So, and I thought I'd just go through our homepage because it kind of talks a lot about who we are. And the FIC has been around for over 35 years. It actually has a much longer history, but in its current incarnation, it's been around about 35 years. And our mission is to really be champions of social, ecological, and economic justice and resiliency through the support and growth of cooperative culture and intentional communities. And we do this in lots of ways. So the sort of the bread and butter of our site is our free directory with over 1,000 listings. We have lots of information on each of the listings, and it's searched by over 500,000 people every year. So it's a very popular site. We have a forum. We also have other social media. We have a blog, social media channels, YouTube, Instagram. We have a newsletter that comes out weekly, if not more. We have a wonderful bookstore with hundreds of free and by donation and for purchase books. There's also videos and articles and free downloads. We have a wonderful podcast, which is now in its second season. I'm actually in the current one, if you go listen, talking about sort of where FIC, if you want to dive in and listen to more details of where we are and where we're heading. And we have lots of online learning programs. This is one of them, but we also have courses that go from just a short event to 5 weeks or more. We have classified ads and advertisements, lots of ways for people to connect with each other. There's over 40,000 unique visitors to our website each month. And so this is a place where they come to connect with each other. Here's some of the best sellers in our bookstore. And then we work with a lot of partners and organizations that you can see here, and this is increasing all the time. And we also respond to media inquiries, and we frequently give interviews regarding the state of the movement and all aspects of life in intentional communities. So it's really a great pleasure and a privilege to be a member of the staff of the Foundation for Intentional Communities. We have a group of 9. We're all very passionate. We're all part-time, but we all probably give more than our hours to the cause, and most of us are living the dream as well in community. Yeah, and so it's a great privilege to do this. We have lots of plans for the future. We're hoping to create a council of eco-villages in North America that can connect with the global eco-village in other regions around the world. We're expanding our directory, also hoping to include more international communities and more educational programs and resources, especially for seekers. Most of the people who come to our site are looking for community. So, and I really want to thank those of you who donated for this webinar. I think we've gotten up to about 650 so far. And as you know, and as Celastrina will go into in a little more detail, we face an overwhelming and inextricably intertwined set of challenges. I'm not going to go into them here, but you know, and Celastrina will say more. And intentional communities really provide unique opportunities to address these issues in a holistic way. And I honestly think it's in our genes, it's in our bones. People need community. And the communities movement really needs the FIC. And the FIC needs you to make it all happen. So if you are in a position where you can be even more generous, please consider supporting the Foundation for Intentional Community by visiting our website at www.ic.org/donate. Very simple website. Every contribution, no matter the size, makes really a significant difference in our ability to support the growth and success of intentional communities worldwide. So thank you for being here today. Thank you, Celastrina, for coming, who I want to introduce now. And so actually, let me take off the slide, the share. And so we could highlight Celastrina, or however you want to do it. And we've just met a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, and it's been a real pleasure getting to know you. Born in Sweden, Celastrina has been living in an amazing intentional community called Damanhur in Italy for the last 9 years. And during this time, she's gained a lot of knowledge of what challenges communities face and how to resolve them. And she believes that conscious communities have an essential role in creating a more harmonious life on this planet for all living beings. And she has a wonderfully large social media presence on YouTube, Instagram. She has a podcast that bridges intentional communities and spirituality. I just watched one of the YouTube videos just today. It was wonderful and really shows how we can find meaning and purpose in everyday living in community. So welcome, Celastrina. So happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for the beautiful presentation, Daniel. And thank you all the people being here. I will put my view to gallery because it's so nice to see so many of you here. And I see, yeah, some people that I also recognize. So hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Celastrina. And as Daniel said, I have been living in an intentional community for now 9 years. And let's say that time really flies by fast because it feels like from some certain point, it feels like I was in my beginning of 20s just yesterday and trying to understand how to create a better world for everyone and trying to do it myself and ending up feeling quite lonely in that, finding closed doors everywhere, finding negative approaches, finding that it was very hard to do so and not very fun. And so that was 9 years ago when I decided that I didn't want to change the world alone, but I really wanted to change the world together with other people. And I started to see the power that you can have really when you go together with other like-minded people and trying to create and to live actually the change that you want to be and to see in the world. And so that is what I did. And I came I had no experience of community living whatsoever, but I was very open-minded. And so I had to learn along the way how to go about what community life was really about. But I think that after 9 years of living through the challenges also that comes with community life, I was really able to find all the various tools and trying to refine, let's say, my understanding of what really works in community and what does not work in community. And this is why after just a year ago, and now I decided to start sharing these experiences and these knowledges on my YouTube channel. And I think, and the response has been beautiful because I've seen that there's a much bigger movement than I actually thought of intentional communities and people being interested in creating intentional communities or eco-villages. And so it's really nice to also see so many of you here today too that are, I don't know, want to join an eco-village or an intentional community or want to create your own. So I will actually also share my screen because we will have, as Daniel said, we will have the possibility to have some questions and answers by the end. But let's see here. Okay, so there we go. Yes, so today we will speak about creating community in the modern world. And I will explain to you why we chose the term the modern world also in a moment. So in this webinar, the learning points, now Daniel, we have been walking through the points that we will see in this 1.5 hours. The learning points that I want to touch upon here is first a point that I think is really crucial, which is a vision of the world that is based on intentional communities and the power that we can have in working locally. And what I meant, as I said, with what does it mean to have modern eco-villages or modern intentional communities? What is the difference between just an eco-village? And then I want to give you the 5 key points that I have gathered living in an intentional community that makes a community successful. and the main challenges, and then of course solutions to how to overcome them. So these are really great things that you can write down, that you can use also for your own creation of your own communities, or the challenges that you might avoid after having these points. And then I would like to invite you to do, let's say, some kind of interactivity, because normally when we want to create our own community, or when we have this interest, actually we have much more inside of us than we think, and starting to already work with that helps us a really long way. So I will give you space to create the visions of your own communities, and then we will wrap up with the questions and answers and a bit of discussion and getting to know each other. Okay, so let's start with the world. So what do I mean when I say that there is, I will stop sharing here for a while. Okay, perfect. So I think that when we speak about a world based in intentional communities, this is so important, because now how it looks like in, I think, all over the world, mainly the politicians and how all our nations and countries are run, is the fact that there are decisions being made not much on a local level. So some people who are not living in the spaces are making decisions over those spaces. And these things takes away a lot of power from the people, and people feel powerless. People feel that they don't have any say in their lives and in their everyday lives. So taking away the idea of having nations where people don't know each other and where there is this kind of separation between each other, I see a vision for the future where we go back more to a sense of tribe. And so now tribe is something that is very much connected to indigenous people, but the indigenous people have had for thousands, hundreds of years, this idea of actually not only tribe between them, but also the fact of they are the ones living and being in contact with their land, which happens when we go into eco-villages and into intentional communities. Because what happens is that we live on the land, we eat from the land, and we create a very strong connection with that territory. And so we should be the one also being both the caretakers and the ones being responsible for, and thus having the power over those local communities. And so this is why a world based on intentional communities or eco-villages that exchange with each other, that specialize, that becomes different depending on where they are, because they mold into the nature of where they are, I feel is much more aligned with both the connection with ourselves as humanity, with humans and humans, and with humans with nature, because it allows us to take back the power in our own hands. And so what do I mean then by modern eco-villages? What is the difference between modern eco-villages and normal eco-villages? There's no difference between this. So the reason why I normally want to point on modern eco-villages is because one of the challenges that eco-villages faces is that they are underestimating what it means to actually sustain an eco-village in terms of really taking care of the land and in really being in connection with that, and trying to detach as much as possible from society, which I completely agree, because I came from a point when I wanted to seek out community where I was really, how do you say, I was really sad, truly, to see that we are living in a way that is that separates us so much from our environment, and that in a society that is continuing to create so much suffering for not only us as human beings, but for the whole planet. And so I really wanted to cut off completely. And I even had extensive periods in my years before going to live in an eco-village where I was completely alone in the jungle and in the forest, because I just wanted to be so much with nature and detached from everything. But the problem that I've seen in developing an eco-village with that mindset is that we are actually taking out also the good things that comes with the modern terms. So I also now, just as what Daniel said in the beginning, it's beautiful to be able to connect with people. We have amazing technology, not only that allows us to connect with other people, but that also allows us to create different kind of income streams, that creates also, that helps us to run the land, that helps us to connect with each other. So I think that we need to create things that can be modern in the sense that they can actually be alternatives for the future rather than going back to the past, rather going back to a situation where, yes, we were much more in line with nature, but we were also struggling. As you know, I come from Sweden. It is now one of the richest countries in the world, and only 100 years ago, it was one of the poorest countries in the world. And so I really know from the stories, but only from a few generations ago, even my own grandparents, how much like they were practically living on potatoes and vodka. And so I don't want to go back to a situation where we don't use the modern and technology that we have, but where we mix and take the best of everything. So this is why I speak about modern communities and eco-villages being so important also, and especially in allowing us to how to balance our time. You know, I think that going forward in humanity, we need to have the time to really explore ourselves, our creativity, and we cannot do that if we are constantly burdened with all the things that people hundreds of years ago was burdened with when it comes to growing your own food and so on. So we need to be creative. This is the creativity is why I point to modern. Okay, so with these things set, let's go into the 5 main points of creating a successful community. So if you have your pen and paper, this is the time to take it out. Okay, let's see if I can do that big screen on that. Okay, perfect. So we have 5 points here, as you see, and I will go into all of them. The last point, which is a confidential secret bonus, I put it in that way actually because this is something that we do in my community, and I've never seen it done in any other community in that kind of this scale. But it's something that really is probably one of the main keys, if not the key, for our community and why it has been so successful for the last 50 years now. But firstly, if you're on your way to start your own community, the first and most important thing is really to establish a shared vision between the founders, between the people that you are going to go in to create this community. The reason for this is that if we don't have a shared vision, we don't really have a sense of where we're going. And so our shared vision is really the goal where we want to be. It's really the ideal to which we strive towards all the time. And also the shared vision actually creates another thing that is really important, which is a shared culture, which allows you to feel connected with each other, which allows you to feel that you're creating something important for the world. And this in turn allows you to not get stuck in, let's say, everyday conflicts, which are surely to arise when you live with other people. So establishing a vision, a shared vision is really, really important. And that should be both in a visionary way. It can be poetic, you can create your own art from it, you can create a lot of things, but it's important that it's also very practical. So you have a vision, but that also needs to show up in everyday life. So it should be the color, like the glasses that you take on when you come to the community through which you see everything. It becomes like the glue of everything. And the thing that makes you brothers and sisters within the community, which is, I think, so beautiful, because my experience of living in community is that going in with, of course, I entered into a community that was already existing, and there were 600 people living in the area where I live in now. So I still, actually, after 9 years, I still need to, of course, I know everyone, but creating strong connections with everyone, there's not that time really to do that. But what is beautiful is that having this shared vision and this shared dream allows you to feel super close to these people anyways. And even people that you perhaps don't like very much, because we're all different and you will not love everyone, but it creates this mutual base of mutual respect. So without a vision, a shared vision, it's very, very difficult. And the second point, I've written, organize everything, because this is also something that I see that one of the main reasons to why communities struggle and why there are a lot of conflicts is a lack of organization, because actually the main conflicts within a community is due to misunderstandings and not having clear expectations. And the reason for this is because we are all coming from different backgrounds, different cultures, different educations. So we have a completely different view of reality and of how things should be done, even though we have established a shared vision. And so organizing everything is crucial. Now, in my community, we often use something that we call the yogurt example. And every time we speak about the yogurt in my community, everyone knows what this is about. And the story goes that when living in community, you decide to not to go and buy a yogurt that you love, and you put it in the fridge, and for you to eat in the morning afterwards. And when you come there in the morning, you forgot to write your name, and someone else has eaten your yogurt. Now, these are the type of things that you fight the most about in community, not the big ideals or the shared visions. And these are the reasons to why it is so important to organize everything. And so now, of course, this is an example. If you buy your own food in the shared fridge, or put your name. But what we do in my community is that since we have different families, what we do is that we divide, we give roles to each member within the family. So if we have a family of 20 people, or even if we have a family of 10 people, in that family, everyone has a role, everyone has a task. So for example, there's always someone who is the captain of the group, who are voted for. And there's always an economist who takes care of the economy of everyone, who then speaks with the other groups. So now I speak from a point of view of being in a very big context, but these principles can be applied also if you're starting out with a small group. You need to have someone who's an economist, someone who's responsible for buying the food, someone who's responsible for planning the work and gathering the people. And then, of course, you can have many different kind of roles, but it's crucial that everyone knows that if you have things that need to be done, there's always someone who's responsible for that. And then you have, of course, the meetings where you check out things. So everyone, let's say they become a small project manager in their own fields. This also helps a lot for people to become more responsible in general. But the organizing everything also goes down a lot to when there is time for decision making. It's really important. This is something that people often see, oh, that is a little bit too much. But I have learned that it's better it being too much than being something that drags the community down. So actually, when you have decisions, in my community, we have something that is kind of a decision diary. So when a decision has been made, we write this decision down and everyone signs. This allows us to always be, okay, if we forget what we were going to do, what was the decision about, because oftentimes many of the conflicts are about, no, we didn't decide that, we did decide this. So having it written down and having everyone signed, it spares you a lot of time. And it gives time to actually enjoy being with each other. Okay, this is why we want to be in community, because we want to be with each other, we want to share with each other, we want to mirror each other, we don't want to just nag about these kind of things. And of course, also organizing everything. Who is cleaning in the morning? Is there someone preparing for the breakfast for everyone? Who is cleaning away for the lunch? Who is cooking dinner? So these kind of having just schemes with turns of cooking and cleaning. So this is what I mean. These are everyday things, but when you organize everything, then that gives you space to be flexible. When there's no organization, you just run after resolving problems all the time. And the third point, also this especially also when creating a community, is getting clear about the main points of conflict. And the main points of conflict that I have seen in a community are, the first point is relationship, sexual relationships, love. So what does it mean being clear with this? Now, this applies again, both on a small group, but also in a big group. Even if you come into an existing community, if they don't have any clear overview of these topics, it's good to stimulate them to actually have one. So for example, when it comes to relationships and love and sex, what are the view of the community in this? Because we all live together, we will be in contact with each other. So in order not to have jealousies arise, what are the main structures though? Is there, for example, in Damanur, everyone do what they want in my community. So the only, let's say, rules that we have, the only norms that we have is to be respectful and honest at all times. But also we have within our culture a saying that couples, we know that couples, they generate a lot of energy, and it is natural for a couple to close in and focus all that energy on themselves. And we allow that, of course, in a period, but also the couples themselves know that they are actually strong if they use their love, if they use their couple to help within the community, because they become like powerhouses. And so this is something that it's a norm that we all know, that couples shouldn't detach themselves from the community, but rather open themselves up. But for example, there are other communities that have established their norms and rules where there's free sexuality. And they actually have those as main points, where they say that actually free sexuality is what we want. So we don't want couples. We want, and they open discussions about this. So since this is such an important point, it's really important for the community members in the beginning to speak about this. The same goes for money. So money is another of those main points in which you need to understand what are the viewpoint on this. Do you want to be completely detached from a money system? Do you want to be completely off-grid? Will you have some people who are working outside that brings money into the community, and the other community members working like for free, but within the community? Or will you have that everyone is working with their own things and bringing money to the community? Do you want to have a completely free thing? Do you want to have community projects that then creates and generates money for the community? So these things are really, so is the money shared? Is it individual? Is there a mix? It's really important to understand this and decide this before or when you are in the process of creating a community. Or as I said, if you want to go into community, understanding what are the norms in the community that you're going to. This also helps you to understand if the community is for you or not, because these are some main values that otherwise can create a lot of conflicts. Another thing is children, upbringing, school. Again, here, this is a huge point. What are the view? Do you want to have your community school? Do you want to send your schools to the school system? Do you want to have homeschooling? And are the children of the community or only of the parents? And how does that work? So these are things that we see that if this is not talked about, there is a lot of confusion and can generate also people dropping out or a lot of misunderstandings and conflicts. And the last thing in the main points of conflict, it is about private versus community time. And this again goes to what kind of community do you want to have? Do you want to have a community where you're doing everything all together all the times? Where do you want to have specific times when you work together on the community projects, or do you want to make it random? Do you want to have shared tasks? How do you see if people, leave and go away for private vacations? How do you see? There's a lot of things that seems silly, perhaps, but that actually makes a big difference. If it's only shared, you don't even need to, decide anything, but it's really important in understanding what are your stand on these things, on private versus community time, on relationships, on love, on money, on children, and all these things, because these are things that make up our life, our everyday life. And this is where we become very also idealistic. We might have different ideologies. How do we confront that? So these are the things to really have clear, and that can also be built into a kind of, let's say, constitution, or into a kind of subgroups under the shared vision. So And the fourth point is to embrace diversity. And I think that all of us are can agree on the fact that diversity is something beautiful. I have never met anyone in the eco-village or intentional community movement who don't agree on the fact of the power of diversity and embracing diversity. So it might seem too weak as a main point for a successful community, but actually when you're living every day within a community, if you don't have tools to deal with that fact of embracing diversity, it might be difficult. Also because normally many communities are Western based, so the diversity in the sense of culture might not be that big, but in family background, in socioeconomical background, but also in the way that we are just seeing life. So diversity is not only cultural, but it has to do with everything that how we perceive life in general. And so in all of our everyday exchanges, and we need to have techniques in how we can embrace the others. So for example, in my community, we have something that we call the quasi-real. We according to a way that we are using this and how we are confronting this embracing diversity is with the fact that everyone knows that there is nothing that exists that is true. Okay, so all of us know, okay, I can have my point of view, my quasi-real, but that is not what is true for you. And with that constant everyday, mirroring of each other and knowing that you can see things from different point of view, with time you create really a culture of embracing diversity, even within the community, even if you're all from North America, even if but it's really, really important, because that is also the way that we grow. And from a spiritual point of view, the others can really teach us a lot if we embrace their points of view, if we embrace their diversity, if we embrace their feedback. But for that, we also need to have a positive feedback culture, which also goes into this. And of course, if you have any questions on these points, you can write them down now, because we will have the opportunity for questions and answers afterwards. So then, the secret bonus confidential point, what is this? Well, this is something that in my community, we have seen that one of the main things that very quickly tear a community down is the inability to change. And we are living in, our life in general is a life where everything is changing constantly. And so we need to embrace a culture of diversity, we really need to embrace a culture of constant change and transformation. And this is something that we are doing through, we even have an own organization, let's say, within the community that is responsible, and people that we pay to overview the community, see is there things where we get stuck, and then create the dynamics for that are often very playful dynamics, to move that, to change that, to create a change of a chain of change, a chain of transformation. And this especially is crucial when it comes to embracing new members into the community, because normally when newcomers are coming into a community, they have new visions, they often see what is lacking, and they're often called to the community also to help with bringing something new to the community. But if we don't have this cultural of change, if we don't have these also playful dynamics between generations, then things tend to be static, and when anything becomes static, it dies after a certain point. So we really need to always stay young, to renew ourselves, to be open to everything that the game of life, which is this organization that we have in my community, propose to us. We need to be able to reinvent anything at any moment. And living with this culture, having this kind of playful connection to reality and to the community. But it's not only playful in a sense of thinking about it, but we do really have our own, let's say, dynamics that are very playful. For example, in my community, there are always groups who are traveling. because travel is something that allows us to get new perspectives. So they travel together to see the community from outside and to see, okay, we are lacking this, so this is something that we want to implement. And when they come back, they implement that within the community, and everyone then embraces that. And if they don't, we have other dynamics that allows that to happen. So playful dynamics, playful role play, or battles, or games. And this is something that I believe should be incorporated not only in intentional communities and eco-villages, but in society as a whole, in any kind of organization. This is really what turns on our right brain side and puts us into a space of creativity, and also of seeing each other in a completely different context. And so we don't get stuck in a view that we have of a certain person if we see them in many different contexts, even and especially in playful ones. So these are the 5 key points that I have extracted after 9 years of living in an intentional community. And I hope that you have taken some notes. Otherwise, we can see how to leave this points or send the slides after the webinar. But what are the challenges? So we look at the challenges first, and then I want you to get in and experience a little bit of community creation yourself. So one of the main challenges that especially new communities face is property and resource management, in a sense that oftentimes when creating a community, there is no idea on the fact that everything should be shared, in the sense that sometimes it happens that not everyone has the same economical situation. Perhaps there's someone who has the possibility to pay more or pay for everything, and there's not clarity around this. But this is actually one of the main things where power struggle arises. And so it's extremely crucial for any new community to be very clear on these management before starting, or when you're buying a territory or whatever. And you can do this in many different ways. You can create a corporation, you can create a company or something that where you're all together and you buy the land together. Or as in my village, I just built a village together with 9 people here in Damanhur, and we bought the whole land together, and then everyone bought and financed their own house within and then we will have the corporation only for the shared spaces. So you can deal with these things in a different way. Or if someone has a lot of money and really wants to pay for everything, but then write contracts, sign things, so that power struggle does not arise, because these are things that can become very nasty and that can really kill this shared intention that you have and this beautiful vision that you want to have for the future. Economic constraints and burnouts, they're connected, because as I said in the beginning, when you start with a community, these you have a lot of things to do. You have a lot of, like, you want to take care of the land, you want to grow your own vegetables, but you need to have some kind of income, and you realize that doing all these things without a kind of organization can take up a lot of time. And also burnouts can lead, which is connected to another point in this slide, which is conflict resolution, because burnouts is often the mix of having a lot of things physically and mentally to do, but also with dealing with the emotional situation of all the members in the community. This is why it's super, super important to also speak about this in the beginning, to, again, with the economy constraints. And I say constraints because in many communities, the money aspect is not very looked upon. Perhaps this is not a case for, I've seen that North America is a little bit different than Europe. So I don't know, perhaps it's a different way of dealing with money. And so perhaps you guys will not have that kind of problem. But the will of cutting away from society and cutting away from the economy system tends to lead to people living in very poor living conditions. And this we don't want, in the sense that poor living conditions, I don't speak only about like having a lot of money, but even with not being able to take care of ourselves or the houses where we live and so on. So that you need to have a lot of clarity on that, especially if you want to create something that can stand for a long time. And again, sexual relationships we have already spoken about. So these are some of the main challenges, really, especially when it comes to love and sexual relationships. These are probably the key point that can really create a lot of separation within the community if not dealt with in a good way. And so this is why these kind of clarities needs to be. And also if things happen, how do you handle that, which of course goes down to conflict resolution. And conflict resolution, of course, is one of the challenges. My advice is to really study also the different kind of conflict resolutions that you can find now. You can find almost anything on internet, on YouTube, or classes and stuff like that. In my community, we also have an organ or like we call it a body. There are 3 people that we elect that are actually like people that 2 people or more people can go to if they don't agree on something and they cannot come to terms themselves. And so also seeing, do you have a third person that can help in this, or do you have family meetings or things like what kind of tools do you use for conflict resolution? And again, the challenges with many communities that we see also a lot today, because many communities were created in the 60s and 70s, and many of them now have a lot of difficulties and have had for many years of recruiting new members, young people, and really evolving as a community. And so my answer to this is really to embrace new members, to really give them a lot of responsibility in the beginning, not being afraid of giving responsibility to new people. And as I said, doing a lot of dynamics, embracing change as really a constant in your life, a constant in your community, and a positive aspect. And something that we see is to really change when things are going well, not changing when things are going not well, because then we don't have the energy. When a crisis arises, that's only because we haven't changed before. And so when things are going really, really well, that's the moment when you should look at, okay, what can we change now to make it even better? And those are the main challenges and the main solutions to those challenges, and the points that I wanted to give you today, because now I see that the time is flying as always. And so I want to put you I want to give you this exercise now with going to this room with people and to share, imagine that you are a group who will create a community. And you want to give it a name. And here it's nice also to understand where you're coming from. You want to give it a name and a main vision. Of course, you have a limited amount of time, so it doesn't need to be a huge thing, but also 3 ideas of how to generate, let's say, income for the community. So already with the mindset of, okay, you have a community, you have a vision, and how can you create income for that community so that you can have the time to be with each other, to live in the land, and just live in this community. And we will see where you're at. Don't stress. This is an exercise for you to really just be active and take out the beautiful things out of you. And then when we come back, I will probably pop into some of the rooms to listen into you. I won't intervene, but if you see me, I will, because I'm interested to see what you have to say. And then when we come back, we will share a little bit, and we have the possibility to have any kind of questions and answers.
And we'll get to Q&A in just a second. And I just want to take a minute and really appreciate Celastrina. I feel you have this amazingly articulate way of operationalizing the creation of community. How do we actually go about and do it? And more than that, I want to say when I listen to you, I really feel the heart. I feel a heart of community. And I feel like there's a light switch turned on in you. And I think many of us recognize that light switch. For those of us who've spent time in community or are longing for that, it reminds me of years ago, maybe 35 years ago, when I was starting my journey into community. I was doing my thesis on children and growing up in community. And I studied the topic. I sent out surveys probably for 2 years. And then I hopped into a camper van, like some of you may have, and started traveling to communities. And I swear, I learned more. I grew more in that one day, that first day I actually entered a community than probably those 2 years I had spent studying them. And so there is something that turns on, that wakes up, and I see it in you. And it's just so amazing to see that, so like I think it's great that we talk about the operationalization of community. And I think it's all also about that feeling that I think we grew up with. I honestly think community is in our bones. We evolved this way. 99.9% of our evolution, we've lived in community. It's only been since the industrial age that we've sort of forgotten what that means. And so just want to say how excited I am to be here with you all. I'm excited to be the co-director of the Foundation for Intentional Community. Thank you for those of you who've supported us to maintain and expand our impact in the world. And if you are continuing to feel generous, please, with your help, the FIC, I really think, is one of the pivot points upon which the world is turning, hopefully toward a more beautiful and meaningful future. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will open to questions. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask, I encourage you to put your video on and we can highlight you and you can ask your question. And you can also put a question into the chat and Lauren will keep track of those. And at some point we'll ask some of those, but I'm looking for hands if anyone would like to ask anything of Celastrina now.
Yeah, my question has to do with how a community that's created as basically a group of private units, private households, each have a unit, whether it's a house or a flat or whatever, and then a sort of defined shared amount of community, such as common meals 3 times a week, a community garden, community activities, but basically each having their own money and their own private household with their spouse or alone or their children. Do you feel that that type of community that has that balance of private versus common is at a disadvantage compared to a community that's very much more kind of communal in the sense of actually living together, sharing space, sharing money even? That's sort of my question about that balance between private and community.
Thank you so much, Josephine. I think that's a great question. And I shared a little bit about my own living situation where we went from living everyone in one house. So the community where I live in, there's many houses with many communities. We're actually a federation of communities because we are so many. And we now build our own village where everyone has exactly what you described now, their own private house, and we have built together a common house in the middle where we share meals, where we eat together, we share the land together, we have the gardens. So I don't think that is a disadvantage at all. I actually think that it is a good way of balancing individual and community needs. I think that it's a very big difference between, like, you don't need communal living to have community. You can, but it's not necessary. What is important is that you become a part of a context, of a local context, where you feel the closeness to the people, where you feel that you have a shared culture, where you feel that you share things, you feel that you're a part of something bigger than yourself. With all of these elements, you are actually creating community. Another experience that I had when I grew up, we were on a long street with all the different villas, houses and stuff, but we kids, we ran in between each other because there was a sense of friendship. And I think that a part of building modern eco-villages and intentional communities is actually what you're speaking about. Even for people who are less inclined to actually go towards intentional community, just having neighborhoods where you actually interact with your neighbor, where you have community gardens. Perhaps you decide to spend a little bit of money every month to pay someone in that community to run all the gardens. There's so many things that you can do. All of this is community. Community is really being with each other, is really connecting with each other and with the local environment where we are, not living under the same house. So that would be my answer for you. Yes, sure, that is community for me also.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think we'll go next to Chris. I see your hand is raised. There you go.
There we go. I think I'm unmuted. Hi there. I wanted to ask Celastrina. I've always been interested in Damanhur because I mean, I live in the U.S. now, but I do have Italian citizenship and Italian relatives, and I've been there many, many times. And I, did a little research from a distance there, but I don't know how much you'd be willing to just share your experience there, what it's like, and pluses and minuses and so forth.
Yes, sure. Well, Damanhur is one of the biggest intentional communities in the world, together with Auroville and a couple of others. And it has a very long history in the sense that it has been thriving for 50 years. Only recently, I say recently, meaning like the last 20 years, there has been a more international movement in Damanhur. And in this moment, especially, there is a boom of like really opening up to the world, in the sense that really also sharing the idea of community to the world, and really helping to facilitate the creation of more communities within the world. So that is one of the missions. Of course, what Damanhur is, it's an intentional community, but it's also based in a very strong spiritual vision. And so I think that is very important for people to know before, we have the temples of humankind, we have a philosophy vision, a spiritual vision of the world. And so when approaching the community, it's important to know about these things, even though actually being part of the community, there's not required to join our philosophical school of thought. You can be a social citizen, you can participate in other ways, but it's good to know about all those various elements. But of course, I think living in such a big community, there is really almost like living in the countryside with the cows and the stuff, but at the same time having so many people visiting, it's almost like living in a city. So it's very dynamic. I like it a lot, but yeah, that's in the short time that we have, that's perhaps what I can say.
Is just to finish up, is there they have a mechanism for visiting it? Is it possible to visit?
Yeah, sure. You can go to damanhur.visit and damanhur.travel and find everything.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Ardell, good to see you.
Hi, thanks. My question is about aside from, I know a lot of communities will do potlucks, but aside from that, are there specific activities or rituals or ceremonies that your community uses to keep it cohesive? And if, how often are those, and how do you really encourage participation?
Well, yeah, when we speak about rituals, it's an appointment setting time where things are going in the same way as as every time. So we do have, let's say we have we have meetings every evening that you can participate on. But being such a big community, we have different layers. So every Tuesday evening, we have family meetings within the small families where we live. Every Thursday meetings, we have the big social evenings where we can also present things from the school, theater plays, or new projects, and so on. And those are mainly the Thursday ones is when everyone meets. Oftentimes people meet a little bit before to have some, to see everyone in our main spaces. But then for us, I think that the, let's say, rituals or ceremonies that we have, that where we really can feel part, it's we have main ceremonies where we celebrate the heartbeats of the planet, so the solstices and the equinoxes, and then we have like a lot of grouping, because we are doing something all together. It creates there's a lot of participation. And except from that, like those are we have a lot of set things But we also actually, through the game of life that I spoke about, have a lot of dynamics that are some of the most powerful dynamics to create this sense of belonging. Even with people that you don't know. So for example, being called to go on a journey with people that you haven't interacted with so much, or we have every year our Olympic Games in August, where we play and battle against each other. All of these things are things that create a lot of union.
Great. Thanks, Esther. Thanks, Ardell, for that question. I next
Yeah.
see, it looks like Steve. Is that right?
Thank you, Celastrina, for your presentation. I agree fully with Daniel. It's very inspiring. My question, I know you hit on the secret bonus stuff about inability to change, but when we're talking about how to generate money, in an intentional community, is there any suggestions? Are there successes in these intentional communities on how to raise money? Are there specific ones in particular, or is it trial and error? Thank you.
Thank you for this question. It's a great question. Well, I think that there are some things that I will mention, but I also think that it's very connected to where you are in the world. It depends. Also, this is very local. I think that the situation is very different from the Italian countryside where I'm at, from where, for example, being in America. Some of the things that we see working is actually, and some of the things that started working in the beginning of the community was creating companies that gave local services. So not only services within the community, but for example, here we opened the first biological food store in the whole region here, or creating any kind of local service that you see that locally is missing. Perhaps in the countryside, oftentimes there's a lot of services missing, is a great way to generate money and help at the same time. And now, of course, speaking about modern eco-villages, actually, especially after COVID, another great way of generating money from the countryside is actually online working. So creating anything online. There is a lot of people interested, even if you're just starting a community, if you have someone with even poor skills in like video making or filmmaking, create a YouTube channel and let people participate on your journey. There's a lot of these things, but I think now in these ages, using internet and as a way of creating income is a great way when living in the countryside in general and in community, but also going together with other people and creating companies locally.
Thank you very much, Celastrina.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And I see David, and then we'll check if Lauren is there's any questions on the chat. David, go ahead.
Hi, delighted to see Celastrina, who I just bumped into on the internet recently and became enamored with almost immediately from her videos. I have sort of a broad question I'm curious how you will react to, and maybe point me to some resources that I'm not aware about. I spent 20 years in eco-village in Ithaca, and in prehistorically, we in community we were very dependent on others. We were really interdependent to the point of our survival depended on our immediate community members. Well, that's not even close to true anymore. We are dependent on the worldwide network of economies. China makes a lot of our stuff. Even in New York State, where they grow a lot of apples, some of our apples come from New Zealand. So there's just it's a different world, and when you come down to trying to figure out how to counteract some of the inequities or even just the valuations that our cultural paradigm puts on different contributions that people make to a community, it gets very complicated. So anyway, I'm trying to start a couple of new communities in Maine and with a network of people. And we don't have money to start with, and we're really interested in finding ways to get people who are maybe older or have some equity to to support young people who have energy and need money and work and want to build houses. So how to balance the flow, give and take of money in a way that, see, what I found in Ithaca was that that was very difficult because people have an expectation that they're going to give and that they don't have to, that other people will give back, and the whole idea of exchanging money kind of rubs the wrong way with being generous and free flowing with time and effort. And so, how do you deal with that? What mechanisms can you use to have, you know, little mini contracts that allow people to exchange in sort of meaningful financial terms that don't rub against the exchange, you know, of in goodwill?
Okay, so a good question, a lot of information. I hope I understood the main point. I think that something that is good is to mix between having an open economy where people earn money with a kind of let's say devotional work and gift economy. So the one does not exclude the other, in a sense that in my community we do have devotional hours every month that we put into our main projects, but that we could also put into, we can actually ask for any kind of thing. I can ask, okay, can I use these devotional hours in this that I think is very important for the community? So it's not, you know, it's not rigid in that sense. And then being many people, it's just exchanging services. Like in my family home, I am very good at creating, you know, videos or websites, but I have a doctor who lives here with me and who has practically saved my life and the life of many community members many times. And so if she would ever ask me to create a website, I would not hesitate, not even once. But of course, you need to to be comfortable with that. It's good to have an open communication and to try to find people within the community that are interested in actually exchanging services, or trying to create a wheel. Like, okay, I want a website, but you want something and you want something. How can the three of us, you know, exchange? It's a kind of time gift economy management in that sense.
Wonderful. Thanks for that question, David. I think there's one question from chat, if Lauren can ask that, and then we will start to wrap up.
Thanks, Daniel, and thanks for answering all these questions, Celastrina. We've got one from Zandra. My question is, since 90% of attempts to co-ops fail, is it better to join one for a while and then start your own? What do you think?
This is a good question and a quite tricky one. I think that if you already have a group of friends and you feel like that you can actually create something together, then you should create that. If you feel that you're alone in this, in the sense that I didn't have any group of friends who were interested in doing something like this with me, then I think it's a great way to join something or travel in between different communities, try out what you feel resonates with you and see, perhaps you find something that really resonates with you and you want to stay there, or you have all found inspiration to create something yourself.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you very much. The issue that we're running into that, so we've been, you know, considering everything about co-op community and studied it intensely for about 3 years now. We have a very specific religious path, or esoteric religious path, that we want to follow, and so then it might be difficult to join an existing community, but maybe it is not. I just don't know what the openness is, you know, in the communities altogether, if they feel like that would be okay if we, you know, celebrate our life as our spiritual master in a certain way by, you know, having rituals, let's call them that way, or needing a temple for our group. Would that work, you think, or what's your opinion on that?
Oh, I think it depends so much on community. from
Yeah.
community to community. Some communities are not interested in spirituality at all. Some communities join because they have a very specific spiritual path. So I think what would be important in your case probably is to find a community where everyone is following their own like spiritual path, but they decide to be together and embracing, you know, humanity in all its aspects in that sense. Perhaps you could like search open spiritual communities online in North America and see if, and then try and spend some time in some of the places that you find.
Thank you.
Awesome. I do see one question from my old friend Neshama. Is it a quick question? Because then we'll try to wrap up.
Yeah, actually, it's to respond to Xander's question, because that's exactly what we're experiencing. So my name is Neshama, and I have lived in Boulder, Colorado, in a co-housing intentional community, which my husband and I created 25 years ago, where we raised our daughters near downtown Boulder. And we wanted to find a place in the world to try something completely different. So we researched a variety of different eco-villages that are being created in Costa Rica, because people are coming to Costa Rica because it's so peaceful here. Like it's balmy, it's really really feels good, and there's so much nature here. Like you can make those connections daily. And I'm also connected to Damanhur. I'm an initiate for years, so I'm combining those two, Sandra. Like what we have 100 acres, and our thought is to be willing to really all types of practices, permaculture practices. We have 3 years we've been building a farm here so we can have food growing year round. But I think in a big enough physical space, you can have subgroups of different spiritual practices, like in Damanhur, as Celastrina was saying, you know, we celebrate the equinoxes and the solstices and Day of the Dead. So we're going to have a Damanhur spiral building workshop in February. So I'm just going to put this big invitation to everyone on this call and friends. February 10th to 17th, 2024, we're opening up the land, our team. We want to invite everyone to come and see this place. We're right by the ocean and also in the jungle. It's both. And then the workshop for the Damanhur part will be right after that, February 24th and 25th. So just there's the website, connect to me. I'll put my WhatsApp down there. And I think it's all possible if you're open-hearted enough, because you want that diversity in practice and thinking and spirituality. So yes, thank you.
I hope to see you in Costa Rica.
Yes,
and
come.
since you mentioned that, I also want to say I'm going back to Oroville in South India in January, February. So if anyone's interested in checking out Oroville in mid-January, come and contact me, daniel@ic.org. Celastrina, anything you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Well, mainly just saying thank you, everyone, for taking the time and for creating communities around the world, and for, you know, being a part of this, you know, global tribe that we are trying to improve the world in some way. It's always very inspiring to see so many people and to feel that we are part of this soon critical mass that can change the world.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Particularly thank you, Celastrina, for sharing your wisdom about creating community. Really inspiring, wonderful. And more than that, really allowing us into your life. I mean, today, but also through your videos and other sharings. I'm following you now on social media. I hope others follow you. You could put the links in the chat if you like. And as we wrap up, I want to make one more pitch to support the FIC in furthering our important work. And really, I mean, I think you all are here. You recognize that we're living in a threshold moment, not just in human history, but in planetary history. And presuming we make it through climate change, we will be a different species on the other side. And core to that will be a different worldview. We will see ourselves as in community with each other and the planet. And I think it was William Gibson, the science fiction author, who once said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. I love that. The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So we have the incredible privilege to live the future with each other in community. And this is what the FIC is all about, to build this better world. And our strength is in that network, in this community of communities. Our strength is with you. So please, please, please take a moment if you can today to support the FIC. Visit our website, ic.org/donate. Thank you again for being a part of the change. The video of this webinar will be available soon, and we hope to stay in community with you as we enter the new year, as we build this new world. Thank you again, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Daniel, Celastrina, Lauren, thank you. I'm making this happen.
This was
Thank
so
you.
much fun. Yay.